Never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and today we got a special guest. We got Igor Kheifets with us. He is an Amazon bestseller. He wrote a book called The List Building Lifestyle. He also has his own podcast, and he has a few other companies that, I really think that it'll change your guys' perspective on what a business can do, as well as just entrepreneurship from his journey alone. So, Igor, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. And you got dope intro music. I was going like, is this a podcast or are we in the club?
No, thank you. I appreciate that. So let's dive in a little bit. I mean, I know there's a lot to you, and I know your entrepreneurial journey has, come a long way thus far. But how did you get started as an entrepreneur?
I never planned to become an entrepreneur. I never really knew what that even means. But at some point when I was maybe 19 or 20, I realized that I didn't want to go that same beaten path that all my friends went. I was actually just writing an email to my list about this earlier today. And I was, kind of remembering that I graduated the Israeli Air Force Academy. And so I was a ready to go kind of really sharp soldier, if you will. I was trained in the military discipline, but I also knew how to work an F-16 fighter jet plane by the time I was like 19. So guys like me, we got snatched up by big corporations in Israel where I used to live. I'm originally from Ukraine. I was born in Ukraine, but I grew up in Israel and now live in Canada. So it's a bit of a complex mix. But back then, I'm growing up in Israel and I'm graduating, and my friends are getting snatched up into these corporations. Some of them deal with electronics, some of them want engineers, some of them are dealing with weaponry systems, developing drones for military, things like that, right? And I got a chance to work for about 8 weeks or so. I got a chance to work at a secret military base on a project that has to do with airplanes as my graduation project. And I got a bit of a glimpse into the future because, I got to hang out with a bunch of guys who graduated the academy a few years before I did, and they were now serving and working in these secret bases. And I didn't like what I saw. They did not control their life. They had to jump as soon as the phone rang because they were working to someone else's schedule. The boss determined whether they're going to work 4 days this week, 5 days, or 7 days this week. If they needed to come in urgently to fix something on an airplane, they could get a call in the middle of the night and they had to go. Sure, they had a great salary. They had a company phone and a company car, but there was no freedom. And when I looked at it, like from the outside, you look at it and you say, well, stable paycheck, a secure job, that's good. But I looked at it and I was like, maybe that's good for somebody, but that doesn't sound good to me because there's no freedom. I can't build life to my own design. It doesn't seem like I get to travel very much. And not to say that I'm a travel buff, like even though I work from home, I don't really travel more than 3 to 4 times a year. And, I try to organize my schedule in a way where I still get to spend most of my time home. I got a good routine going. There's the schools nearby and everything. But still, like that life kind of sucked. It actually, like none of these guys were happy. None of these guys were actually rich. They were just getting by and paying their bills. And their life came down to going to work, coming back from work, going to work, coming back from work. Occasionally, once a year, they'll go on like a vacation where they'll be schlepping around like everybody else, doing things that everybody else was doing. There was nothing unique. There was nothing different about the way they lived their life. And I wanted different. I wanted to call the shots. I've had, always had this desire for a sense of control in my life. And I just didn't see how I could get that sense of control working the same job that everyone else was working, even though these jobs were on paper good, solid, stable jobs.
No, I mean I think that's like the case with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? It's not something that necessarily we like are born and we're like, we just want to be entrepreneurs. It's all of a sudden that sense of control, like you said, does come into play. Having a ceiling or having restrictions kind of put on you from either from a creative standpoint or just a lifestyle standpoint. It's one of those things where you're like, well, if I don't do it on my own, then I'm gonna have to basically live by someone else's rules. And I feel like that's one of the things that kind of all entrepreneurs at a certain level basically kind of have that same feeling or that same characteristic, right?
There's a great saying: an entrepreneur is the person who's willing to work 80 hours a week to not have to work 40 hours a week. And I think it's really true because, especially early on when you're just building your business, like when you were building your fitness business, I'm sure you were working 80 or 100 hours a week. And you were like really grinding it out, and then you like weren't expecting any handouts, and you were just, if you weren't working with a client, you were working to generate a client. If you were not doing that, you were working on your taxes, you were working on structure or strategy, and then you decided to start a gym, and then you go and you do a franchise. Now you build the software. So I'm sure your plate is full, but it's full by your own design. You wake up in the morning and no one's like on your case,
Yeah.
right? No one's telling you, okay, 8 a.m., bro, gotta wake up. No, it's like you set the alarm clock for 8 a.m. because you know you got shit to do. Or some other day you really don't feel like it, so you don't set the alarm clock. Like earlier today, I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe it's like the weather's changing here in Canada or whatever, because it changes like every 20 minutes. Like I just couldn't get out of bed. Like I was just so exhausted, and I didn't. I slept in for a good hour or so. I woke up and I still got along with my day. There was no phone calls. Remember when I used to work in a hotel and housekeeping, you know, Saturday morning I have to go to work and it's like I really don't feel like it. And then I'm late for work and my boss is, my phone's ringing off the hook and the boss is yelling in my ear. I genuinely hated that, especially given the fact that I've never thought that any of my bosses were more intelligent than me, or smarter than me, or better human beings than me. Oftentimes my bosses were idiots. I know it sounds kind of mean, but they truly were. And some of them were really just bad mannered, impatient, lacked empathy, and just very demanding people that I did not enjoy working with.
No, I mean I completely agree with you, and that's similar in my past too. And I think that's one of the things that again, like entrepreneurs have that self drive at least. And yeah, you can sleep in a day here, a day there, but at the end of the day, you already know you're going to get the task done that you need to get done for the day because it's your business, right? And a lot of people want to become an entrepreneur because they think that they're going to work 4 hours a week, from that 4-hour work week book and stuff like that. And it's like you're trading a 40-hour week for, like you said, an 80-hour week, especially in the beginning. And it doesn't feel like 80 hours necessarily because as an entrepreneur, you enjoy the grind to a degree, right? And it's something that you build
You can
pride
even get
in.
addicted to it, I'd say.
Yeah,
I think, like, when we say in the beginning, that's a very stretchable phrase, because for
right.
somebody, the beginning may be 3 years, for somebody, 3 months, and for someone else, 30 years. But when I say beginning, it's before you start behaving like a business owner versus an entrepreneur. When you're in the build phase, where you pretty much do everything yourself,
Right.
where you're trying to still like optimize your systems and you're trying to figure out your daily operations, trying to bring in the right people if you need to, or if you're like starting a gym, then obviously looking for a location. And then once you get the location, you have to do renovation, you have to bring the equipment, you have to do this and that, and then work on the marketing material, and then print this and nail that. So the beginning can last for a long time. I think I got stuck at some point, and I spent. So I've now been doing this for a good 15 years. I think I spent a good 10 years being addicted to the grind. Like I got the idea that I had to work my ass off to make money was so engraved in my mindset that I couldn't accept the idea that I could build a system that makes me money instead. Like, for example, these days, I'm a list builder. As you said, I wrote a book about list building. I have a podcast about list building. It's because list building or email marketing is where I make my money. Almost every dollar that I make, I can track it back to an email that I sent to an email subscriber, whether it's a customer or a prospect or joint venture partner or anyone else. And what I really kind of couldn't accept was that I could send an email and make a lot of money, right? Or I could be doing something else and money would come in automatically because of my email follow-up sequence. Or I could have a webinar that's automated, that runs every 15 minutes and I don't have to be there to run the webinar myself. Or I can hire a salesperson to close my sales on the phone rather than do it myself, which I used to do quite a bit. So I refused to take on this concept that I don't have to be the one doing everything all the time to make money. And that kind of worked against me because I ended up developing kind of being stressed out all the time. So it was very difficult to be around me. So it kind of took a toll on my family life. And I've also developed some back pain issues because I was just at my computer working all the time. So I was sitting all day long. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't prioritizing my health. I wasn't prioritizing anything at all besides my business. And that became a bit of a trap. So eventually, though, once I've accepted the idea that you can build systems and these systems can carry your business, that's when the 4-hour work week kind of started. But even then, I think the 4-hour work week is not attainable anymore, at least. And I mean, unless you're settling for like making high 5 figures, in that case, 4-hour work week is very much attainable. But if you are looking to make multiple 6 figures a year or 7 figures a year, especially in this economy when the inflation is so high, then you kind of have to be making 7 figures a year if you want to live a good life. In that case, forget about the 4-hour work week.
Yeah.
Even with my business where it's mostly automated, if I just count the hours that I work, I still work from roughly 9 a.m. because that's when I drop the kids off at school and come back, from about 9 a.m. to about 1 p.m. every day, which means I'm working 4 hours at the very least. Some days after lunch, I'll do calls, I'll do recordings like this one or something else. So on average, I'd say I'm averaging about 5 hours a day, about 5 days a week. Now, that's pretty good, but that's not a 4-hour work week, which is, again, a bug that, of course, as soon as you find out you can do that, you're always like, oh, I want that. But then you spend years and years chasing it in frustration, thinking that everyone else is living the 4-hour work week but you. But that's not true, guys. That's really not true. Most entrepreneurs just work their asses off.
No, definitely. And like you said, it's one of those things where you may only be, let's say touching the list, or let's say a link breaks or something like that. You may only be doing, 4 hours a week of one task of the business. But like this call, that we're on right now, it's still networking, right? So even if you don't think it's, you go to these masterminds and stuff like that, you don't think that's work, that's still work, right? So when you factor those things in as an entrepreneur, you have to do those things to continue to grow. So I completely agree with what you're saying. What got you into, the email marketing and the list building and all that kind of stuff? Because that is definitely a niche side of basically business. What got your interest in that, and how did you get started in it?
Well, 2 things. The first thing that happened was at the time, I was a part of a network marketing company. And, what you do in these companies is that you try to get a friend who will get a friend who will get a friend, right? So I ended up doing a lot of face-to-face talking to people. I sucked at that. Then I switched to social media and I started like DMing people and randomly messaging strangers and pretending to be their friend and saying, then kind of a few days later dropping the link. It was like, oh, and by the way, this great thing for your gas tank. If you spray it into your gas tank, your car will run longer. Whatever, all that stuff. And I realized that I sucked at selling, for one, and the second thing I realized is that it's really just it's a lot of work to sell $20 a month gasoline, inject like a spray you inject into someone's gas tank, like one by one. It's just very, very difficult. And then I started looking for a different way to do things, and I realized that many of the people that I was following at the time who were teaching direct marketing principles, but of course they were teaching it through the internet, because I was isolated in a way. Like, I was in Israel at the time. It was before the information boom. It was before everyone and their brother was an expert at something. It was before social media was exploding with gurus and everybody telling you suck and you should change. So in Israel, there was no role models for me. So I was like looking to the West, and I was following guys like Jeff Walker, who just released at the time, he released the product launch formula, and Frank Control, who released Mass Control, and Ryan Dices and the Perry Belchers of the world, and all of these guys that were basically shown at the forefront, if you will, of digital marketing. And I noticed that they would just get together and they would just email the heck out of their lists, right? So anything that in like anytime I engaged with any of them in any way, it always led to an opt-in form where I had to enter my email, and then they would email me stuff, and then they would email me more stuff, and every time they had something else to sell, they would email me again, and I'll be excited, be like, oh, this new thing that they got going on, this new course, this new program, this new webinar, this new software, whatever. And I was like, you know what? If these guys are mailing so hard, maybe I should build an email list as well. And this kind of set me off into a really long journey that took me a couple of years to figure out the best way to build a list, to monetize the list, and to continue scaling it as well. And it didn't start earning me money right away, but as soon as my list hit a couple of thousand subscribers, that's when I ran a campaign. And I think I sent out an email, made like 17 sales with one email. This is where I was like, I made it, and I haven't stopped ever since.
No, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, when you finally get that break of it working, like, even though 17 sales, like, it's like all of a sudden that light bulb like just brightens, right? It goes from just being a dim light to, wow, this works. It's amazing when that happens as an entrepreneur, right? Now, the mindset of doing email versus text or even like calls, what is that mindset or perspective you have to have when you're building your email list? Because it definitely is different. The verbiage is different, all that kind of stuff. So what's the mindset that you had to learn to develop to excel in what you do?
It's a bit of a farmer's mindset, because oftentimes what you're doing is you're planting seeds. And that's really what you control. You're planting seeds in a form of generating email subscribers on your list, and then you start developing this relationship. In a way, it's not a relationship like a relationship between you and me, where we get to chat, we get to sit down one-on-one, we get to discuss our passions and hobbies. But it's more like the kind of relationship you have with your favorite movie star, or with a radio talk show host, or with an author of some sort, or maybe even a politician. Like, you basically ask yourself whether you agree with what the person stands for, right? And so your job as an email list owner is to communicate what are these things that you stand for. Like, for example, today we're discussing entrepreneurship. We're discussing the different mindsets and values for entrepreneurs. So if you were to put the content of this podcast into an email, someone reading the email would quickly recognize that, oh, so Igor and Devan are all about entrepreneurship. They're all about, recognizing the grind. They're all about development and not expecting any handouts, right? They're all about like systems. They're all about growth. So if the subscriber reading your emails kind of buys into those values, or if they share these values, most of the time people just buy into the values that they themselves already have, then they're going to follow you. They're going to read your emails in the same way they're going to read your Facebook posts, in the same way they're going to read your tweets. And then you have the opportunity to be in the most intimate space that you can hope to be, and that is in their email inbox, because an email inbox is a lot more intimate than a Facebook fan page or a Twitter profile or anything else. It's antisocial. it's very, very intimate, because that's the inbox is where we have our most intimate stuff. For example, like Amazon receipts go into your email. If you set an appointment in the embassy to renew your passport, it goes into your email. If you're filing your taxes, you're talking to your accountant using emails. If you're getting, I don't know, sued, you're probably going to get an email and a physical letter as well. So anything to do with intimate and personal stuff, especially purchases, then that's going to be the email territory. And so if you're there every single day, you are maybe not a friend, but you're a trusted, trusted person in their life. They're choosing to keep you there, then you are now making a fan for life, right? You can email them. I mean, I email every day. I don't know about other people, but you can email them every day with different news and offers and bribes and everything else, and people just keep on opening. I got some people on my list now. I've been there for 10 years. So anytime I got a new product offer, training, anything, I'm just one email away from literally a bunch of them signing up and launching a new project. Like I ran this campaign to, I think, something like 1,030 something people that resulted in 6 figures in 3 days. And it's only because these are, people who've been on my list for so long. They like my vibe. They like my products and trainings. So if I'm like, hey, I got something cool going on, they're like jumping in.
No, I think that's awesome. I think that something that was important that you said was you're emailing all the time and you're building that relationship. A person may never have met you in person, but over time you're building that connection with them, right? And it's one of those things where, do you believe in like basically like the storytelling, like like the Seinfeld style emails and all that kind of stuff, where it's not just like offer? Like, do you do like the storytelling style as well?
Well, the thing is that they are not exclusive, not mutually exclusive. So when you say, do I do storytelling? Yeah, but I do storytelling and make offers. Every
Right.
email that I send out has an offer in it, because that's what my people expect from me. I do have a content-only newsletter, but even that has offers in it, but more in the form of placements, kind of like what you would do in a podcast, where you break the content of the podcast in order to bring a special announcement. But I use storytelling. I use pretty much every direct response marketing technique you can imagine, and it always leads to an offer of some sort.
No, see, I think that's huge. Like, if someone's getting into doing email campaigns, and the keyword right there is a campaign, right? It's not just one and done. It's you do it every day. Like there's a reason why you do it every day. You get some people today, it's some people tomorrow, but all again, they it's a net total. But again, it's not just, hey, I have this offer, buy it, right? There's a story, there's more behind it, so that people read it, they're enticed to read the entire email and then actually get the offer or the product. I want to go back to something you had mentioned earlier, right, and tie it to what we're talking about now. You mentioned, and I completely agree with you, that today's day and age, everyone's an expert, everyone's a guru, and all that, right? Now, tying that into, so many people basically use the offer of, let's say I have an email list of 10,000, or you can buy my email list of 10,000. As a young entrepreneur, that might seem enticing, right? What would your advice or warnings be to like those kind of gurus that are getting sent on Instagram, LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff for those new entrepreneurs? Does that make sense?
Given that I've been in the game for so long, I learned to simply not trust most gurus. I try to do my due diligence, and to be frank with you, I don't actually go on Instagram and other platforms anymore for the last few years. Ever since I read the book by Cal Newport called Deep Work. And what I realized is that it completely transformed my life in several ways, one of which is I became a lot more productive, meaning that I don't have to exert as much effort trying to block a distraction anymore. I can just focus on my work. So it's much easier for me to produce this way. But in addition, I don't get to be distracted with everyone saying, "Oh, look how great my life and business is." And if your life is and business is not as great as mine, then you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So I try not to go there. When I do have a problem of some sort, like I'll go and I'll look for solutions, and in that, then what I would do, I would probably find the top three expert on the subject, and I would go and either buy a consultation or join their low ticket thing, whatever the thing is. And I would basically ask them all the same questions if I can. And then based on the answers that I'm getting, if I'm hearing commonalities, then it probably means that I should be paying attention there. Um, and if I'm not getting commonalities and it's all contradicting advice, which I think is one of the biggest problems today, let's say you've got a problem, you've got 5 experts, and you've got 4 different opinions. That's especially true for medical stuff. Like I said, I developed low back pain issues over the years because I was just sitting behind my computer all day, and trying to get low back pain advice from doctors, from actual, not even Instagram people, like from actual doctors, is so difficult. You go see a physio, and he's gonna tell you that your abs are too soft. You're gonna see a doctor, he's gonna tell you got a herniated disc and you need surgery. You're going to see a different physician. He's going to be like, "Oh, let's get you a steroid injection so you're not in pain anymore." Blah 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 blah. Like, it's very very difficult these days, and I really don't have a way to differentiate who's legit and who's not, especially on Instagram and social media where everyone seems the same. I mean, especially now with ChatGPT writing everyone's copy, everybody sounds like everybody else. So that's not really helping. In my opinion, you go and you simply ask the same questions of multiple experts. Based on the answers you're getting, you see, you're either looking for someone who's going to say something completely different. And you're like, okay, so everyone's saying this, and this person's saying that, so I'm going to listen to this person because they sound different. Or you look for commonalities as far as solutions suggested, and then you can dig deeper. What I also find is, as an entrepreneur, the quality of my answers really depends on the quality of my questions. And the way the algorithms on social media platforms work today is that they pretty much just give you the answer that you're looking for. You know what I mean? Like, if I go on YouTube and I type in, I'm Jewish, for example, and I go on YouTube and I'll type in something like "why Hitler was right." Okay. It's going to show me a bunch of conspiracy theory videos about why Hitler's plan was actually pretty good. It'll talk about the current situation in Europe, where you've got lots and lots of immigrants coming in and causing lots of havoc, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and whatnot, right? But if I type in "why Hitler was a monster," I'm going to find videos about that. So it pretty much gives you the answers that you're looking for. So when I was trying to fix my back pain issues, and when I went in, I was typing questions about stem cells and how stem cells help with back pain. I was literally getting like videos of people be like, "Oh, I did stem cells and I don't have back pain anymore." Then I would go and I would ask, "Are stem cells bad for you?" And all of a sudden, I'm getting lots of videos of people complaining, "Yes, I did stem cells, and these are the complications. This happened to me, that happened to me. This clinic scammed me. This clinic," and it's basically just telling you exactly what you're looking for, almost like serving your confirmation bias more than anything else. Which is why these days I'll probably spend more time looking for the right questions to ask rather than looking for the right expert to listen to. That would be my number one priority. Yeah. And the other life hack that I've discovered is, obviously it's not new, but I would find people who had a similar problem before, and I would ask them for the resources that they've used to solve the problem. Oftentimes I'll be asking them for a book recommendation, because chances are, if somebody had a problem and they solved it, there was a book of some kind that kind of led them to the discovery of the right solution, which for me seems to work when it comes to investing, when it comes to health, when it comes to relationships, oftentimes I'll find the right answers in a book, in a good book that comes recommended by multiple experts in the field. And that will lead me to asking the right question that's specific to my situation. Because, with all the complexities of looking for answers these days, there's one more layer to it, and that is your situation is probably unique, right? Like with my back pain, I've discovered that eventually it wasn't about my herniated disc, and it wasn't about my abs, and it wasn't about a bunch of other stuff, but it actually came down to my glutes and my weak glutes because I sit down all day. So the questions I had to be asking to solve my problem is, what is the right way to train your glutes? And then once I've got deeper into that, it was actually specifically to glute medius, which is the muscle that's responsible for like you walking upright and you're balancing from when you lean to the side to side. And once I've asked the right question about how to strengthen that muscle, actually I had to go through another layer of differentiating between stretching that muscle and strengthening that muscle. Turns out two different things. So once I got to a point where it's like, oh, maybe I need to be strengthening that muscle, then I started asking questions such as, what are the best exercises to strengthen your glute med? Then I got deeper into different workout regimens and eventually built a custom workout plan that led to me completely eliminating back pain. But again, that's a result of like over 3 years of digging, asking questions, trying things. But the outcome was worth it for me because I was living in pain.
No, and I think that's awesome. And what you said too about asking the right questions is huge, and asking the right questions and doing your due diligence and vetting people, because if someone's not doing or hasn't done what you need, then again, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, right? If someone's never built their own email list, but then they don't do email marketing, but they're just selling an email list, it's like, well, how well is this? If someone went to buy personal training or, open one of our franchises and I didn't have one myself, then it's like, why should I trust you? And so I think a lot of times, like the problem that you think you have, like you said with your back, is not always necessarily the actual problem. It's something else that's radiating to cause that problem, right? Like business, just like the body, it's a chain. So just because there's a kink in the chain somewhere, you're going to feel that pain somewhere else. And same thing with the business. You think that you just need an email list, but really it's like, why do you need the email list? And then take a few steps back, ask the questions, take a few more steps into it, ask more questions, and really dive in. So I think that's huge. And I think that's one of the issues with a lot of like, newer entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are trying to become business owners. And the difference, in my opinion, is one, they've traded a job for another job. Their business is their job. And then the other side is like, once you start to learn, building a team and delegating, taking off the hats, like you were mentioning earlier, and, giving other people the hats so you can be in your zone of genius. It's one of those things where you've learned that you need to ask questions, right? Because someone else that you're hiring on a team, they can do email marketing better than I can. So I'm gonna hire them, stuff like that, right? So I think it's huge in life in general, personal development, relationships, like you have to ask questions to really find out what you're looking for the life that you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And most people are focused on the answers, of course. But when you spend a lot of time on the question, what happens is you can almost get to a point where the question almost fixes the problem. I think Tim Ferriss, there's a great TED talk by Tim Ferriss about his anxiety, where he's showing like a way that he dealt with it, where he couldn't even go on vacation because he was so anxious that his business is going to fall apart. And in that TED talk, he says, a problem phrased as the right question is half solved. I found that to be very true. Because by asking the wrong question, you're focused on the wrong direction. You're trying to fix the problem in the wrong way. Now, obviously, you don't know that. It's not obvious, but that's what usually happens. You end up, basically going down a rabbit hole that is not going to lead you to the right solution, just because the question you asked originally was not the right question to ask.
Right. And then, your questions always need to adapt, just like, we do as business owners or as someone does in life. just like when you got those 17 sales, then you're like, well, why didn't I get more? Then you ask the question, and then all of a sudden you get 20 sales, and then you're like, well, why didn't I get those? And you keep digging in deeper and deeper. So I think that's huge to learn in life. At what point did you decide to write a book, and why did you write a book?
Well, I just got tired of answering the question, Igor, what do you do for a living? To be honest with you, because whenever I would hang out with people and they see the cars that I drive and my lifestyle and the fact that I don't really have like a traditional job, they would always ask me what I do. And eventually I figured, that it's kind of hard to explain to people what list building is. Most people just think I'm a spammer when they hear it, of course. So I figured, you know what, maybe it's time I like wrote a book, and then I would kill two birds with one stone, because one, I can now, put the book into the hands of like anyone who I want to like hang out with, and it's going to be a really good icebreaker. But also for business, it became a very good lead generator. It became kind of put me on the map as the expert on list building, because until then I was just a guy who was building a list, but now I'm a guy who can teach you this. And actually, the book sold lots of copies. So, I'm a quote unquote somebody. Funny thing is, I turned the book into an Amazon bestseller by running a 3-day campaign to my list. So
I know that's the crazy thing about, I know, a few authors now, and it's, once you get into like the field at a certain level of entrepreneurship, you start to learn that, a lot of people do write books, but there's tricks to certain things that you don't know at the everyday level, like to become a, New York Times bestseller or other, bestsellers. Like there's just certain requirements that you need to hit, right? So like how you just mentioned, like you ran it to your list. One of my good friends just launched his book. He ran it to, our group and his list. And he owns a barber college, and he still has an email list as well, right? So it's like he ran it to his list, and he was also an Amazon bestseller. It's like there's certain things that you start to learn, but you learn it through networking. You learn it through all the different areas of entrepreneurship. And again, it's about asking questions. How does someone become an Amazon bestseller? Well, find an Amazon bestseller and start asking questions, right?
That's right.
So before we wrap up, I have, one question for you that I like to ask everyone on the podcast, right? Let's say in a hypothetical world, right? This is everything that you've created. Your list is gone. Everything is gone. Your book's gone. You have one message that you can leave on basically your tombstone as your legacy message. What would that message be?
Talk about good questions.
Why
the message would be don't be like everybody else. I've learned as I was building my business that the people who did exceptionally well in any category usually did not behave the exact same way like everybody else in that category. I mean, this is true about life in general as well. If you look at most people, they're overweight, they're stressed, they're eating crap, they're not sleeping well, they have shit relationships, their life sucks, right? So I've kind of adapted this mentality early on, where I didn't want to be like everybody else. I didn't want to be like everybody else working a job. I didn't want to be like everybody else living, where I was, when I was born, or where life kind of put me. Like I wanted to make that decision. If I travel, I don't want just to go and like be inside a hotel. I just want to go do something amazing. Like last time I went to Vegas, I got into a helicopter with a machine gun and got to shoot the machine gun out of a helicopter. So that's like unique and different. I usually try to do things different, and that leads me to asking different questions. That leads me to almost have like a disdain for average or like everybody else. The only time when I want to act like everybody else is in a restaurant picking a meal, because I would just ask the waiter, be like, what's your most popular dish on the menu? Like, what is the one thing everybody orders all the time? Because then that's good. But other than that, I just think be different. Just try to be different. If everyone's zigging, you need to zag. And that advice served me well throughout life.
No, I mean that's awesome. I mean, don't be a sheep or you'll get lost in the herd, right? You got to be
Yes.
different to build the lifestyle that you want. Don't worry about, the judgment of others. Where can people connect with you and learn more about, building lists and, about your book and stuff like that?
Yeah. So if you want to get a free copy of this book, The List Building Lifestyle: Confessions of an Email Millionaire, you can go to igorsbook.com and you can basically grab a free copy. You chip in on the shipping and handling, and I will throw in $3,200 in free bonuses that include some courses on list building, some traffic generation stuff, landing page templates, email templates, and lots of stuff that you need to actually build a list. If you're in the US, it will cost you $10, I think, for shipping and handling. And if you're outside of the US, anywhere in the world, I think it's $20. But it's really worth it. Otherwise, you could go on Amazon, just type in list building lifestyle or type in my name, Igor Kheifets, and you could get this book on Amazon. But if you do that, you don't get the bonuses. So I recommend you go to igorsbook.com to do it. I also recommend you check out our podcast by the same title, List Building Lifestyle. We got some really cool conversations there, not just about building a list, but all things business and specifically marketing. And promoting your business and getting more clients, generating more leads, and doing it in a way that doesn't kill you.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out today and hopping on.
Yeah, my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully your listeners found some value in what we shared today.
No, I definitely know they did. Make sure you guys share the show, leave a review and connect with Igor to learn more about, building a list. And if you are a new entrepreneur, I promise you, it's one of the things that you're going to have to learn at some point. Might as well dive in now and start building that list, because it is not an easy task, especially in the beginning when you're just trying to figure out how you're going to, take your business to that next step. So like always, guys, we appreciate you. We love you. We'll talk to you on the next one. Thank you, Igor.
Only positive thoughts, cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle hard, I go against the current, cause I know my mind